What if the smartest version of you could write your content?
The whole point of a second brain is to keep all of your knowledge and the things you're doing in one place, but in a system that you will actually use. It can come up with content that I couldn't even think about coming up with because it's connecting tens of thousands of data points all together at different points in time. It's like you can Google your own thoughts.
As the co-founder of Seven Figure Creators, Matt Lakajev has coached more than 1,500 founders and generated $3.7 million in revenue in just 2 years.
Whatever it says back to you is just your subconscious coming back. AI has already arrived. We just haven't changed our behavior towards it yet.
Could you tell us a little more about what that means for anybody who's listening right now, being like, what the heck?
Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know what a second brain is, just Google a guy called Tiago Forte, and he wrote a book called Second Brain. And it talks about most of us in our daily lives, we have these amazing insights, and we always put them in our Apple Notes, or if you're a bit of a psycho, you might use a Samsung, use one of those phones. And like these insights kind of dissipate into nothing. And like, we forget our projects and tasks, and we've got all these different task management tools. The whole point of a second brain is to keep all of your knowledge and the things you're doing in one place, but in a system that you will actually use. Because that's the problem with a lot of us. We always start project management tools and we're like, I'll create a content management tool for LinkedIn in Notion and it will be all beautiful, but I'll just never fucking use it. And so like all these insights we have in business and in life, we just lose them. So what I kind of went through a process of building over the past 10 weeks is kind of like an AI second brain kind of holds my external cognition, like cognitive scaffolding, so I can use it to do anything I want to do, including like, say, all of my content creation.
Nice. So curious, this podcast, when it's done and recorded, will it become part of your second brain or does something like not fit into that?
So what I've added into my second brain thus far is every LinkedIn post that I've ever done, every internal school community post that I've ever done for our program, I'm adding in all of my whole actual paid program into it as well, all the transcripts. Then I'll be adding in every single coaching call. Then I'll add in every single YouTube video I've ever been on. Then I've also added in every single ChatGPT conversation I've ever had, all 350 of them, every Claude conversation, every single Otter transcription where I've walked and spoke for 45 minutes straight. And so it gives you a full 360 kind of view of everything. So it essentially has your externalized brain of everything you've thought about. So now I'm able to go back in time and be like, what was that thing that I was thinking about in May that I totally forgot about? And it's like, it was like one of these things. Oh, cool. It's one of those things. Okay, let's create a piece of content on that based off my theories about philosophy and the 6 gates of lead generation system. And then it just pulls on everything that I've got within there and it can make connections within it that I otherwise couldn't, because our brain has a certain amount of thinking we can do at one time. It's like, that's why a book is so good, why resources are good. But I don't want to tell ChatGPT what to do. I want to be like, okay, based on everything I've already thought about, where do you think we should go? And then I decide.
Interesting. So then when you decided you needed a second brain, what led up to that?
So this purely came from like frustration in my own life. So small backstory. So like in 2018, I was like pretty lost. Like before in my life, I'd worked about 25 different jobs. I dropped out of school, but I never got anxious and I was never stressed ever. And so for some reason, I'd never felt that feeling. But when I was about 26 or 27, I was like, man, I got to get a normal job. So I'm going to go into accounting. I'm going to study full time. I'm going to do accounting. And at that time, I was like, I'm doing the right thing. But internally, I felt like I was kind of like doing the wrong thing. And so like, it was actually Coachella in 2018. Like we partied a bit too hard and I actually ended up having like pretty much a breakdown then and there.
Oh, man.
And that was like, I was literally writing the last notes in my phone, which I've written about in a book I'm putting out now. So I don't care about sharing it. And that kind of like fundamentally changed me to change things in my life. Because that's when I decided, after that, it was another few months and then I had another breakdown, had to move home with my parents. That was when I was like, fuck this, I'm taking control of my life. And that was kind of the first point that I remember reflecting back on where I was like, I decided that I can control things in my life other people kind of can't. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through that point in time where you're like, actually the system's fucked. I've actually just got to make this work for myself. You kind of realize that like and maybe parents feel like that when they have kids or other people feel it in life, but like that was kind of the first stage. And so then I went on this kind of like bull run of me working at Zoom, being the number one in the world in my role, crushing it there, making a lot of money, going into business, losing a lot of money, but then crushing it and making a lot of money now where we are. And so I actually went back to Coachella 2 months ago. So after I spoke to you guys again, and like, I don't party that much at all this time, but we just had a good time the first night. The second day when I woke up, I was like a bit hungover. And whenever I do that, I go for a walk in the sun and drink some water and stuff. And I just immediately started using GPT then and there. But I didn't kind of realize at the time, and I've reflected back now because I work with like 2 therapists on this, like proactively. But at the time when I did it, I was reflecting back super hard, and I actually kind of like kicked myself into like I had like another like thing in my life where I was like, oh fuck, everything that I was kind of like chasing, it doesn't make as much sense anymore. And I had like another moment, which I think it was like kind of trauma driven, but it was also driven by the fact that I had this intense therapy session with GPT that I didn't even realize that I was actually doing in a trauma moment, which is usually the times when, someone's 65 and everyone around the world passes away and they lose their partner and they have this moment where it clicks and they kind of change. That's why a lot of people later in life, but I kind of like kicked myself into this stage way earlier on than I was. And then I started having these thoughts on like, oh fuck, like what am I building? And so past more than 3 months now, since like April, whatever it was, 16, April, May, June, July. So it's only a couple of months now. It's like I've been thinking like, okay, much more long term, just because I'm thinking more in systems. And so a lot of things changed, which is kind of weird. But after Coachella, I came back to Australia and then I went over to Bulgaria to just be with my partner. And so I had a lot of time to think to myself. And I was like, okay, I want to build a system or a project that can help as many people as possible. Like, how can I actually do that? And I was like, well, I've got all these insights, all these things. Why can't I build an AI system that consistently builds on my own thoughts every single time? And why can't I build a system that recursively learns and I'm able to audit my own stuff? And so that was kind of like the nexus of me deciding, well, fuck it, I'm just going to build this thing.
Yeah.
And that was when I just started. It was built purely from frustration from me. Man, I've had all these insights, all these things that can help so many people. Why can't I have it all captured in one place so I can then build on top of those insights? Because we all know there's times when you're in the shower, you go on a holiday and you have this idea and you're like, fuck, like it's so good. And like, then you go back and you action it. But like, I wanted to be like, why can't I just have those ideas all the time? Like, why can't I just have that? And why can't I have like my external thoughts and everything structured in a way? And so that was just when I went on the quest of just building it. So I was like, all right, fucking, I'm just going to build it. And so now I've gotten to a point, probably 10 weeks on now, maybe a little bit less than 9 weeks, where it's like, it's actually really good. So I plugged everything in and now it's just like, it can come up with content that I couldn't even think about coming up with because it's connecting like tens of thousands of data points all together at different points in time and that I couldn't actually think of. And so I can ask it, hey, can you write me a piece of content that around my philosophy of this, how I think about trust in the sales process, and pull back what I used to think about. And it just literally pulls it all together, which is kind of crazy. It's like you can Google your own thoughts.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
I was curious, are you planning to make your second brain available for others, or is this just for your own use?
So what I think is the future and business of content creation and just business in general is I think now, like the way I've built this second brain and the structure and setup, we're building now internally for our program a LinkedIn DM tool, right? Called Link Ninja. And we've already released version 1 to our program, but we're building a DM tool that can go through and sort your DMs. And then also it'll use AI to then assist you in what to say next. And it will also rate your DM conversation on a trust score to tell you how much the other person trusts you and whether you should be booking a meeting now.
Wow.
But the function or the structure of the software will be built, like the LLM will be on top of my brain LLM.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the difference. So every single thing or decision it does and makes, it'll be baked off my philosophy from my experience in this niche thing that I do. And it's the same for a lot of other software we're building. So I've been testing it with GPTs for clients. So I created a GPT where a client can just upload their chat transcript they've had with a client. And then it goes through and it gives them a trust score, because I think there's trust gets built, it goes through 6 gates, and you want to get someone to a gate 4 or gate 5 before you want to ask them for money, or a gate 4 before you ask them for a meeting. And so with one of our clients, Randy, I gave him this GPT. He ran through all these conversations and he helps nonprofits use LinkedIn to get funding. That's what they do. But he realized that he was actually asking for people for meetings way too early at only gate 2 or 3 when then not enough trust was built, that it was a bit weird. So he changed his process based off the feedback of the GPT and said, oh, okay, based off this, what should I do now? And it's like, send a personalized Loom video. So he sent a personalized Loom video, 3 or 4 minutes, because he built enough trust for them to watch a Loom video.
Right. Nice.
And drastically, all his bookings just massively went up because he was able to audit how much trust was built throughout the process. So
Awesome.
what I did is I took the GPT, and underneath in the GPT, in the files, because you can put files in the back end of the GPT,
Mhm.
I put the frameworks and models that I built from my own second brain. So it's using my logic to instruct what to do based off my experience.
Got it.
Because
Okay.
what I think the future of what's going to happen is like content creators or people who are really experienced, or whatever niche they're good at. If you can use AI to just extend what you're already doing, that's the kind of goal. We're limited by, as a human, by speaking, talking, whatever leverage. I think AI will be the new form of leverage. Like Naval Ravikant talked about how you've got pieces of leverage are people, you've got labor, capital, which is money, you've got content, which is like one to many, you've got code, which is software. But I think there'll be another layer that stacks everything over the top, which is the AI extended version of you.
Interesting.
Because I think a lot of us are like, hey, if I could just think like this person, you could say, hey, think like one of the best investors in the world, and then do the investment, but you don't actually know. But if you could create a system that could actually reenact that, then you could get the output that they want.
Now, theoretically, with that, couldn't somebody, we'll just use Alex Ramosi as an example, go and get all of his content he's ever created, create their own brain of his, and make it available to others? Like it becomes this
100%.
interesting thing about who owns your brain.
100%. Like that's the hard thing about content. I think I thought a lot about like, what's the downside of content? Just access to you. It's like of course there's a downside of content, which is like if people see you or recognize you and stuff like that, and they're thinking about you, which is attention. But like if you think for people that have got thousands of hours of content baked in, like you could essentially just take all of that, and you can pretty much know if someone's being authentic, everything about the personality type and how they make decisions and everything anyway. Like AI is smart enough to just know that. But I don't think we really factored that in when anyone made content, or
Yeah.
even if we cared as well. But yeah, definitely theoretically could. But it just depends on how the level of authenticity someone is as well. Like
Correct.
that's another kind of factor that comes into it, because you don't know with content creators, and not saying that, say, Alex Hormozy is not authentic, right? He seems like he's really authentic, but like, is that the actual thing going on in his brain? But like, I think if they had an Alex Hormozy building a small business brain and they constructed it in this way, yeah, it probably would be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Like it probably would be if you took everything out.
Sure. I think the interesting balance is for individuals when they do it, because I've tried different things where I'm like, oh, okay, now put it in this person's, style. But the challenge with that is then it's like, what's your style? And that's because that's ultimately the authenticity is how you build that with others. And
100%.
what I found the most helpful is actually when I do pull, like I took a ebook I wrote once. I'm like, okay, help me create content from this. And when I did that, finally, it's like, oh, okay, this connected, and it was using a little bit more of the voice, and
Yeah.
the content from it has performed better. So I think there's this important balance, which takes exactly back to what I think you've done and you've been able to do with the brain. So I want to dive into how the heck did you create this? Like, walk us through it,
Yeah.
because Art and I are going to go create our own brains after this conversation. So I'm sure.
So I'm writing a book on how to do it right now.
Okay.
And I'm not writing it, the AI is writing it. And it's not that I'm like, hey, AI, write it. I'm just saying, all right, let's talk through this chapter, this, and it's writing it in my own thoughts. Because
Okay.
you want to make it authentic to you. It's like, do I read every line, and do I like agree with those things as well? Like, and is that something I'm doing? So the way you need to start, like the very, very first step, is there's so many different types of people. There's 8 billion people in the world. Everyone is unique and different from their own story. And one of the biggest issues I find just within life as well is like, there's this old saying of like, just put yourself in their shoes and what would you do? And I actually think that's dumb. Like, because if somebody has a totally different personality type to you and you put yourself in their shoes, you will do something different. Like, we all watch movies and we see movie characters and you're like, oh, I really like that person. Yeah, I really would do what they do. And then your friend's like, what the fuck? They're an idiot. It's
Yeah.
because they create movie characters based off different types of people. Like, who are they? And different profiles of people. So you see yourself in different people as well. So the first step is really understanding yourself. So it sounds a bit weird, but like there's three kind of ways that people naturally communicate. One is spoken. So me, I'm extroverted intuition. So I speak and think at the same time. So I'm coming up with new concepts. A lot of people aren't like that. My sister is more an introverted feeling type. So she will write to think, actually write. For me, it's frustrating because it's too slow. And then there's other people who want to type to think. And so depending on what you gravitate towards, what's the thing that you're comfortable doing, the thing you want to do is you want to do a half an hour stream of consciousness dump. So what that is for me, it's walking. I'll walk around the park with my dog. I want to do it in the morning, not at night when I'm just fully clear. I haven't taken any inputs in the morning or as little as possible.
Yeah.
And I just walk around the park and I say, I'm thinking about go. And then I just talk for half an hour and anything that comes in my brain, even if it's like, oh, fuck, my dog's doing a shit. Oh, I hope I got a dog bag thing in my bag. Oh, I've got one. Even when that comes in, say that. And then what happens is if you do that with writing or typing, at the end, if you add that into GPT, that's your actual mind and yourself. And so that's when you're like, okay, based off this GPT, tell me what everything about my personality type, my Myers-Briggs Big Five, how I think, Enneagram, disc profile, everything. And it can give you a pretty solid grasp, like not 100% accurate, obviously, that you need to do a psychometric test, but like it gives you a solid grasp because usually most people go to that 16personalities.com and we type it in and we get it back and we're like, that's pretty good. This gives you something where you're like, oh, fuck. Like you're like, this is crazy. And even if a couple of things might be off, but it gives you a holistic profile of you. And that's the starting point because
And your dog, it sounds like.
definitely, exactly. My dog hears the barking. It's like this type of dog as well. And that's kind of like the starting point because then if you just speak fluid stream of consciousness, most of us don't do that ever. Like unless we journal or whatever. Like most of us just don't naturally do that because it's just fucking weird. And you're not going to do that with friends and stuff like that because it's also weird because you have thoughts that are kind of stupid.
And how often are you doing this? It's not just one walk. I mean, how many?
Oh no, I've done this probably like hundreds of hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've had like walks where, that's like the first stage though to begin. So it's like half an hour of that, and then you'll get back or you write and you take a photo of your journal or whatever you want to write on a piece of paper, or you type and you just upload it. That's the first step because then based off that, then you ask the AI, okay, based off this, now I want to build a second brain. For my personality type, what's going to be the thing that actually works for me? Like, because every single thing will be like 100% unique to the individual. Like some people look at my second brain setup and I think in frameworks. I like to talk about frameworks. My sister likes to think in stories. She can't think in frameworks. She can't conceptualize it. I try to tell her framework. She's like, this is fucking boring. But if I'm like, let's tell this story, she's like super engaged. And that's how she communicates. She loves stories and stories about people and things. And so it depends on who you are to what you want to create. But most of us like have just never kind of really done this and really looked introspective into who we are. Like we've done it a bit and self-development, it's a thing, but this just takes it to like a new level of like, oh shit. Because like
really-
then you can work out things about you, which you're like,
Right.
I don't even know that.
Right. I'm like, I could become your therapist in some ways.
Literally. It's essentially whatever it says back to you is just your subconscious coming back. So when you layer in your full stream of consciousness, what comes back, it won't be anything new. You'll read it and you'll be like, oh, wow, this is super accurate. It's just fleshing out the things that you've already thought anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, and you just bring it into surface.
Now, what happens though in that example that you shared with, your sister being more story based, you being more frameworks? Obviously, I've seen some of your posts. In your posts, you can go into the story side of things. So, do you then work with the AI and that to actually get the stories incorporated in there and try to purposely because it's not where you lean, or is that completely two different things I'm trying to combine here?
It's not that I don't think in stories or use stories. It's that my base model of how I like to look at the world is through a framework lens. That's kind of like as a basic. So I'll look at what is like I did a consulting for this gym 2 days ago where I went out to their gym. They're called Locker Room and they sell memberships for $25,000 a year. And they're the
Wow.
business class of gyms, the most expensive gym in Sydney. And we just sat down and I was like, okay, I just open up my AI second brain. I'm like, cool, this is the framework of building trust. Someone's either a stranger or they're an identity ally where they tell other people about your stuff. Here's the spectrum. Here's the 6 gates that they need to walk through. Let's audit your sales process and find out where the issues are. So I find it easy to communicate within frameworks yourself to do it, but it's not that you can't communicate in stories as well. It's just how do you kind of think and process information?
Sorry, but the brain, when you are then going to create and you're leveraging it in that sort of way, I guess where I'm trying to figure out is whether or not you have to purposely prompt it differently to extract when a story might be helpful. Or, for example, your sister, if she was using something similar, but she knew the people she was talking to do better with the framework, then help me put this into some sort of a framework that they're going to
Oh, definitely. So there's your brain and how you think. but then there's communication to other human beings. And so when you're communicating on social media to other human beings, it depends on the medium that you're communicating in, how you want to say things.
Okay.
And so if we're talking about LinkedIn, what matters a lot is the visual component of the image and the first kind of 3 lines, because the whole goal of your post is to get them to click the ... more button. So when you're communicating within, say, social media, you're trying to capture, like, people are just scrolling, you're just trying to stop the scroll immediately. And so then after that point, you want to click the ... more, and then you want to hook them for a couple of lines so they just keep reading. And so the way you'll do social media and the way I'll try and communicate on there is different to the way I do email marketing. Email marketing is like when someone opens their inbox, it's more intimate, it's one-to-one. They don't have the distractions of the other flashy things around, because when they click on your email, they look into it.
Yeah.
And so then in email, I might write something a bit longer, a bit more emotional or whatever, and I might use a different type of story. So
Okay.
I'll try to cater to the format and the individual based off where they are, but then I'll still use my second brain or my brain to come up with how to communicate to that individual.
Okay. Got it. All right. Sorry, back on track now. So you started capturing all these things as you were out and about in your morning walks. Then what?
Yeah. So let's say I was like, okay, project, let's how to build it. And so there's a few means of coming up with insights. So I think an insight is like something that I've been thinking about for a long period of time, and I want to kind of like consolidate it and let it kind of metabolize in somewhere. And so I'll have a few different means of communication. I might say when I was in Bulgaria, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and I'd go for a walk. There's no one awake in Bulgaria at 6 a.m. It's like the coffee places don't even open until 7, and then I'm the first weirdo that lives there. Like, I'm walking in Bulgaria and I'm just speaking into my phone, into GPT, using voice text, and then it comes back with a response. And I'm speaking back with a response. And so I'm literally like, all right, I'm going to have a discussion with you for 1 hour right now. Let's just talk about all these things of what I think about business, life, philosophy, clients. And I'll just whatever comes to my mind, I speak it. There's no thing, because the thing where you get your true thoughts are just whatever you're following. It's like you can't, with creativity, it's like why a lot of artists in books, they just walk around like headless chicken until they have an idea, then they run back to their place. It's like, because you can't do that. So I'm just trying to follow the thread of whatever I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I might have a conversation for an hour, then I go back home, then I say, all right, on my computer, all right, GPT, now can you pull out what are the best frameworks from here, or the interlink things that I was saying, but I didn't know I was saying, that can kind of help the other frameworks that I've already built. And then it will extract, okay, these are kind of the key things that came out of that were unique and different. And then I'll be like, okay, cool. Now, can you try and break it? I want you to disprove this with science. And then I'll go through a process of trying to disprove it, trying to smash it. And I'll distill it to a point where it's like, okay, this is actually pretty good or pretty true.
Yeah.
And this is how I think. Okay, cool. That's a framework. I put it into my second brain around how I think. And I can give you examples of frameworks or things I think about as well. That helps.
Yeah, no, and I know you said a couple of them already, but I'm curious here, when you say you're capturing this, just again, make sure if somebody else wants to do this as well, because anybody's able to, capture those, as you said, easy
100%.
enough, do it that way. But how are you actually creating the second brain? Is it just on ChatGPT? Yeah, how are we doing this?
So I use a tool called Obsidian. And Obsidian like allows you to store structured files and format. It's kind of like Notion. It just allows you to say this thing links to this thing. And so all it is it's text summaries and stuff that's taken out of GPT. So let's say I talk to it for 45 minutes. I get back home, create me these 3 frameworks. And what it does, I'll try and smash it. I'll try and see if science backs it up. I'll try to disprove it, because I don't want stuff to be in there that's
Yeah.
And then after that, I'll be like, okay, cool, create me a framework. And I've got a format that I have for every framework. It's got like the created date, the title, the tags, because I want tags in Obsidian. Because if you have a tag, it searches other things.
Yeah.
Then they're linked to other frameworks, and the GPT knows what's already in the second brain. So it creates the new links. So I don't actually have to create links at all. And then I have it start the core narrative of what it's about. And then it goes through a numbered list of different things until the end it goes to the scientific backing. So then I have like this kind of like report thing that I then copy that and paste it into the second brain in a folders system. It's like a folded system, but it's interlinked between the other things I've already thought through.
Interesting. Okay. And then Obsidian, is that, if anybody's going to do this, that is the go-to tool based on what you're describing? Or because it sounds like, I know some people have captured some of the stuff, but I guess it might be too massive to do it within ChatGPT. So that's why I guess still trying to connect. Why is Obsidian a necessary must, or is it just your preferred tool?
So I said to GPT, when I put in my whole personality type, I said, okay, cool. If I'm going to build this second brain, what's the best tool for me?
All right.
And then
Gotcha.
tell me that.
Fair.
So that's how I came with it. I find it easy to use. It saves locally on your computer.
Yeah.
I can zip up the whole file and then I can drop it into ChatGPT. A lot of people don't know you can do this, but you can get a file, zip it up, put it in GPT. It can then analyze 1,000 things.
Okay. Now you're
Which
doing
that
it that
works.
way versus having it directly. Like, is it directly feeding it, or are you feeding it periodically? Like, I know there's
So
still people use.
that was my initial frustration of why now I built it locally on my desktop. So I got my own kind of LLM that runs on my computer.
Yeah.
Because I had to keep dropping it in and the files kept getting large. I got 2,500 files in there. I was like, okay, well, this is annoying because every time I drop it, it forgets a little bit of the stuff. So it's pretty good. And it's like 100 times better. But I was like, how do I create a consistent system? Because as you keep coming up with these summaries and insights, because they happen in your GPT conversations, but they're kind of caught there. It's kind of like your Apple Notes. It's like you forget about it.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, now that I pulled them out and put them into this other thing, what can I create now that can then essentially query the whole thing? And so I started by building like a set up on my own computer. And so I use this kind of open source tool called Anything LLM. And I run this other thing called Docker Desktop, which my business partner now told me now, he's like, a few years ago, you need a 180K engineer to rig up what you just did. But I just followed GPT to do it. And so I run it locally on my computer. And then what I did is I got all of my files and I got AI to I got ChatGPT to vector the files. So what that means is the files themselves are in a format that AI can take it and it can chunk it into what's called vectors. And the vectors are what we use to actually search. Because the problem a lot of people do is like, we'll just put in like a 1.5 million word book or whatever, just massive book if it's that big, and you'll just be like, go. But the problem with AI is it doesn't have stakes, it doesn't die. And so it doesn't know what's important and what's not. It doesn't have lived feelings. So it can't surmise what's important and what's not. So it kind of needs a map. And so I created a structure where in the brain itself, there's a map and each saved thing is structured so it's easily chunkable into vectors. And so that means when I put the whole thing into my local desktop, it kept running the process and it was like chunking it down. And now I've got what's called like 80,000 of my own unique vectors created from my own thoughts. So if you extrapolate that to words, it's times that by how many words, it's millions of words or whatever. And now it can like search inside. Because otherwise, if you just get a wall of text and put it in, it doesn't know what's important and what's not. It can't tell. So it's like,
how do you know how to organize the vectors?
I just got AI to teach me. Everything I just got it to teach me. Like I'm not an engineer, like at all. Like I'm not even a tech person. What I rigged up, I showed my business partner who can code. And he's like, this is fucking hectic. How'd you do that? And I was like, just follow GPT. So I just literally got it to teach me to do it. So I'll sit at my desk and I'll open up speech to text transcription and I'll say, all right, I want to build this local thing on my computer right now. So I pretend I'm an idiot. I know nothing about engineering and coding. Let's just walk through the process step by step how I'm going to do it. And so I just sit there pretending I've got an engineer next to me. And I just speak as I'm sitting here for like hours. And it just took me like, I don't know, 40 hours to rig it up.
That's crazy. That's awesome. And sorry, the software you said you used for the vector, that was which one?
So I use this tool called Anything LLM, which kind of like runs locally on my PC. And so, it has a vectorized like database. It's kind of like a database that it can query. It's like, because with most of us, what we do is we just take a whole bunch of information, just shove it in and we try to hope that it makes sense of it. But it's better if you create a really structured database that it can search everything. So this is like a database of my own mind and my own thoughts.
That's awesome.
So Anything LLM runs in my browser. And then in Anything LLM, there's a setting which I change, which I'm like, okay, which AI model am I going to use its vectoring chunking folders? Because you can use Claude, GPT, any of them, and you can grab information, you can chunk it down or vector it with that format. So I chose the best one, which was OpenAI's large 3.0 or whatever it's called. And I used GPT to tell me. And then the best one for me then when I'm say running Anything LLM, when I want to ask it a question, I found Claude 4.0, whatever it's called, is the best to give me feedback and responses. And so I'm using different things to chunk the data and different things to search it because it's kind of open source. So you can choose which API you want to use and which you want to actually run.
Okay, interesting. So in that scenario, it's safe to say then you're paying for advanced models across GPT and Claude?
Yeah. So like I have the Claude Pro, the GPT Pro. So that's probably $500 a month Australian to combined. And then I also run directly into the API. And so directly into the API, it's got a usage charge. And like because there's so much like data, every time I hit enter, it's like 25 cents every time. because it has to pass through so much
Oh,
fucking
wow.
data.
Interesting,
Like
right?
it's
Good
just
point.
so much because it's able to literally like I can literally ask it. I can show you guys after the podcast. Hey, what changes did I go through from April to June? What did I experience? And what were some things that I've experienced that I haven't even yet acknowledged yet based off all of our conversations?
Yeah.
Because I've taken 350 of my GPT conversations, I've dated them and timestamped them and put them in a format that can be vectored so the AI can query over time of
Okay.
how I've changed as
Yeah.
well.
Matt, if the conversation that you're talking about, and the walking stuff, I know when I do that type of conversation or deep thoughts, you might start just randomly start having conversation that doesn't even matter, but it's kind of free flowing, and
Yeah.
it kind of might start leaning into locker room talk where it's like not appropriate, but it's in your head. So who cares? How would you deal with that? Like, do you want some of the
Well,
biases and politically incorrect stuff that lives in everybody's heads kind of get
100%.
surfaced?
I want all of that because I want to be able to then debug those thoughts that I have. So I'll give you kind of something that I've kind of gone through as well while experiencing this. Because like we all have thoughts that we kind of don't want those thoughts. It's like right now my partner's overseas and my partner's Indian. I've been with her for like nearly 20 years, and the Air India crash happened, and there's just like fuck tons of people like just writing super racist comments and just. But it's not the people who write the racist comment. That's fine. There's always some fuckwit. There's 2,000 people that like the comment, and you're like, actually, what that person is doing when they like that comment is they're actually no closer to an ape than an actual human, because what they've done is they haven't actually deducted their own thinking. They've actually let their emotions take over in their thoughts, and they hit like
yeah.
instead of thinking, oh, that's a stupid thought. So you can't actually control our own emotions. So as humans, though, but like we walk around and we have all of these emotions and stuff that they just come in. They just come in from nowhere. And you're like, what the fuck did I think about that?
Right.
So I want to capture those things because then I'm able to talk through like, why did I have that thought? Like, why? So one thing that I used to have a problem with was overeating. Every time after my Thursday night calls, I'd finish at 8:30. I'd go downstairs, stressed. I would order Uber Eats. I'd order Guzman y Gomez in Australia. It's like Taco Bell or whatever. I'd smash 4 tacos. Afterwards, I'd order chocolate, like ice cream and a chocolate dipping thing with strawberries. I'd order it again. Sometimes I'd order a third thing, and I'd fuck myself up every Thursday because like I just did that. And I was like, and then the next day I'd punish myself with exercise because like I've always been like pretty fit. And then I'd like, wouldn't be able to work as hard on a Friday and all these things. And so I was like, so I'd essentially just, when I'm walking the bike, I'm like, why do I do this? Why is this happening? And I just keep talking about it and just try to remove as much ego as possible, just everything. Why? And I kind of came to the conclusion that I overeat to feel safe. When I was a kid, like for my whole life, all I got for lunch, this is for old parents, they just had no idea about calorie counts. Apple, banana, a sandwich, and a packet of chips. That's all I had. And I was a growing kid, ran around all day and played handball. Then in the afternoon, I'd do soccer training. And I'd go home and I'd smash 7 tacos and burritos. And I'd be so full that my stomach hurt when I went to sleep. And a lot of cultures have this. That's just like normal. But I was like, that is literally the reason. And I was like, man, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so from reflecting back so much of this stuff over time, these kind of those thoughts that come in that you don't want to have these thoughts. Like a thought I had before is like, man, I'm such an idiot. Why did I overeat last night? I was like, no, wait, why am I thinking like that? It's kind of like journaling therapy. It's not a replacement for those. Those are different domains, but it's because you get such fast feedback speed and feedback fidelity. Like it's so clear.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah. And that allows you to like essentially like debug your own thoughts because you can go through and you can be like, all right, I'm like, why am I thinking like this? And since then, I just haven't overeaten. But I also don't have I don't have to fight willpower. I don't have the urge to.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go to dinner now when I used to go to dinner with my parents and I'd be sitting at my mum's and she'd pull out like a cake or whatever. And I'd always take 2 slices and I'd always feel sick and I'd feel bad the next day. And my heart rate would be up and my whooping and I always like beat myself up about it. Now I went over the other night and I just like mum pulled out the cake and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have a really small amount because I don't want to insult her as well. And just say, look, mum, I feel quite full. I'll have this. And that's like, perfectly fine. And I didn't have that feeling. So I think my thought process is like AI has already arrived. We just haven't changed our behavior towards it yet.
Yeah.
We just haven't, like humans take a long time to change what we do. Behaviors are the biggest things, right? We have access to all these things. We got the internet in the year 2000, but people didn't buying stuff online maybe 10, 15 years later. It's like our behavior hasn't changed, but what I think is actually there is no. AI is like 1,000 times more powerful that we can even comprehend right now. Everyone's just waiting for it to get to better. But like, what happens if it's already here and we're just not using it in the way to get the output?
Right. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Matt, kind of as a follow-up question to that, what you said makes complete sense. I would do the same. But in your case, where you want to use your second brain to help others, how would you account for your biases and, inappropriate thoughts getting into other people's hands?
Yeah, so the way I think through it is like, I think me going through the discovery of building the second brain, I don't really want other people to like use my second brain per se for their own personal things. Like, I think, like, if I can help them for say in a business sense and like, okay, I'll take my frameworks and help you generate leads. But I think most issues in life now come from like, there's just a massive identity crisis. There's like this whole incel movement with young guys. Everyone's getting into conspiracy theories. Everyone's all of a sudden a carnivore because, like, and then that's the only way to do things. It's actually an identity crisis. And I think that people, the best thing for people to do is like look inward. And I think using AI is like a way that we can look inward. So I think it's more the process of doing this stuff yourself than copying the process. Because I think a lot of us have looked at people who were like, they're a bit different to us. And we've all done this, right? I looked, say, at Alex Hormozy. I'm like, all right, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm not going to have a morning routine. I'm just going to get to work and just fucking work. And I'm just going to do that. He has a very fundamentally different personality to other people. Like, and because of that, I tried to do what he did and other people did. Doesn't fit with my personality. And so now when I reflect on what I do, and everyone has superpowers, like every one of your friends that we all know, they're always such unique and good at these things. And you're like, fuck, how are you good at that? You kind of want to like lean into that. But I think a lot of us are living life where we're just living with a mask on. And we're just like, we're trying to like have this mask up because we don't know ourselves. But if essentially a hand gets tied and it falls down, and it's like, you can't. So it's more the process of going through and discovering yourself to understand yourself better, because ultimately, like all the problems happen from just shit communication. People just can't communicate. It's like, because they can't see that someone else would think something in a different lens as well. So I think that's kind of more what it is. It's not like, hey, use my second brain to make money and get output. It's more like, no, here's the process of how I thought through and came up with this whole thing. Because I really think that if more people practiced metacognition, which is just thinking about thinking, the world would just be better. Because like instead of them liking that racist comment on Facebook, right? They'd be like, why did I have that thought? That's a bit fucking weird. Like, why did that thought come in? Like, I don't actually think like that. That was actually just my instinct coming in. And then if you do that, it's like taking a step before. I think a lot of problems would be solved from that, just solving that.
Which is interesting when you say it, because again, as we dove into this conversation, I saw the content creation, the evaluating your sales, but this whole other component that you've said here is actually
Yeah.
quite fascinating. Again, as you said, maybe not a replacement of a therapy sort of thing, but a self-reflection and like a leaning more into who you are, because sometimes people then lean into the other people they see and who they are and all those other things, and not so
100%.
like and that journaling aspect of what you said alone, like all of that is 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 a huge benefit of its own. And
Mm,
I can see the future where, we all do have a little bit more of a personalized AI, I don't know if you call him agent in that case, companion, buddy,
mm,
whatever it might be. Yeah, anyway, so it's fascinating when I think about it that way. I, I'm curious here as we kind of, just take us back to the steps for a minute here.
mm,
So I think we touched on some of the software that you're, leveraging, the way that you connect them together. I want to
mm.
get in a little bit more to some of the next steps so that we could dive into, like, because you're using it to evaluate sales, create
Sure.
content. Like, how does that end up working unless I'm jumping a few steps ahead?
That's all right. I'll give you like a lot of the nexus around this is like, my goal is to help small business owners be able to create a lead generation system they can generate leads themselves. I believe fundamentally the number one thing as a small business owner is you want to be able to turn the lead tap on, because everything is downstream from lead generation, to quote Daniel Priestley. And like, because I've just seen it, like I've coached like 1,500 people now. I've chatted to 10,000 plus people. Like, but the issue I've really found when I've gone through this, it's not an issue of tactics, an issue of the self. It's actually that. And as woo woo and fucking gay, like, look, I'm using that word badly, but like, as weird as that sound, like everyone grows up thinking that stuff. It's like, there's all these people who go take these ayahuasca mushroom drinks in South America and they get all fucked up and then they change themselves. As like bad as that is, it's kind of like that's what a lot of people are trying to do. You just don't
Yeah.
like, want to do that. But a lot of the issues that people have is just issues they have themselves. It's just like, I can now just through my subconscious, because I've worked with so many people, and my coach could do the same thing, right? Because he's coached thousands of people. Like you can see someone and talk to them for 5 minutes and you're like, you will make it because they have enough self-trust to be able to do it. Like, and so a lot of this came from that where I'm like, actually, people would be way more successful if they just looked inwardly at their own personality instead of going through a program and just trying to imitate me. And I'm very different to other people. And I'm a bit of a fucking psycho. Like, I did all this shit because I'm fucking crazy, right? I don't have kids. My partner's overseas. I live in Sydney. Like, I make quite a good amount of money. I can do these things. But if you're a parent, like, and you live in, Mexico, you're fucking very different, right? It's like your situation. But I think people having the ability to then be like, okay, this is my situation. This is how I work. And then having the self-confidence to then do things their way is like the best way. Because then if you can't do it for a day, like if you can't do it forever, you shouldn't do it for a day. It's like, and so I think when it comes to lead generation, like what most people are doing is they're trying to follow something that feels inauthentic and fucking weird. They're just like, you're sitting at there, you're sending a DM to someone, and you're like, this feels super cringy. Like I would never say this in real life, but someone must know more than me, so I'm going to say it anyway. And it's like, that's kind of the issue. It's like, no, you shouldn't actually say that. What would you feel like saying? What would you actually feel like saying?
Right.
That's actually the right thing to say. Like if you feel like, let's say you've never sold your program before or your product and you feel really weird about it, but you want to message these people because you do know you can help them when they got a problem. What you write is, hey, Michael, like this feels a little bit weird reaching out to you. Like I was thinking through it, but like, honestly, I've spent 20 years doing this and I was actually able to help these people. Like I want to reach out because I'm just starting this business and doing this. You will book meetings. Like people will see that and they'll be like, oh, this is real. So I think there's a lot of fabricated stuff out there that's like, and we're just thinking that someone knows better. No. Your intuition actually knows best. Like our brains are like the most powerful things. All of this is kind of like a lie. And every client I've walked through and I've coached and the people who, I got a stay-at-home dad that made 42 grand last month and he works 10 to 15 hours a week because he doesn't follow the rules. He just follows like, this is what I'm going to do. We coached him every point. 1 year later, he's making that and he's like, how do I get to $1 million a year now? Oh, let's fucking work it out. Like, because if you adopt someone else's methodology and tactics and everything like it's gold, like then you just end up doing things that are authentic that eventually you just can't do it forever. It just doesn't actually work. So that was a bit of a side tangent because I just wanted to set the preface of that first because that's fundamentally the issue. When someone's sitting there for 3 days and they're reviewing their DM scripts, right? You're reviewing it because it doesn't feel like you and it feels fucking weird and you don't trust yourself enough to actually send it. That's the issue. It's like, and I felt this all throughout my whole period of career in sales. I was like, this feels weird. I don't know I'm going to send this and I'll leave it like 3 days and I'll come back. And so I see people in our program, they're like, hey, should I send this? I don't really feel like it. And I was like, don't send it. If you feel weird, don't send it. What would you feel comfortable saying? This? Okay, send that. Because like then it's through the process of taking action and doing that you learn things. It's through the doing. And you can't learn, like everyone's had an app idea for 6 months. It's never going to turn into a thing. It's never going to turn into a thing because it's through the doing that the learning actually happens.
Yeah. So then, okay. Now, and like what you just said, it is very interesting because it does boil down to the one thing that oftentimes people want to avoid and not talk about, which relates back to, again, a mindset component of it, because again, it's true. It's like the way that we stand in our own ways or look to somebody else when the answer is, within us, for lack of a better way to put it, and everybody else is teaching us how to, do it the way that worked for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it works. I totally get the marriage of these things. And so I'm curious. And I also, again, I look at it and it's one of those where some people are like, because a lot of people don't want to own the idea that it still does come down to us individually and how we tackle that, and whether or not that means also, because I think the other thing with on the guru front, or who are people are listening to, they're taking this person's advice, but then on top of that, they're also taking this one, and they're stitching together 5 people and a little bit of them to try to be them, but they're still leaving out the piece that I think is more important. The irony is
Also, the weird part where you could give great advice, but then you can't take your own advice.
yeah, that too, right?
It feels like one of those situations where you can help yourself take your own advice.
Yeah. The irony, though, is that the solve for this is also, or not the solve, but a key step in the right direction is also the very thing that people are becoming over reliant on in some ways with AI and how you could use that. So can you walk us through exactly how you're then like leveraging this? Like, what are some real world examples that you use now when it comes to the lead component, or honestly, any examples? I'm just curious to hear a couple.
Give you a couple of examples. So one was we had a pretty shitty offer doc. So when we talk to people through a sales conversation, me and my sales team, we're like, hey, here's the offer, like have a read through, see if you want to join the program. and Office Doc was really stale. So I was like, okay, cool. Based off my whole second brain and absolutely everything about my philosophies, can you write me an offer doc? How long should it be? And so I want to clearly communicate our program and the values. So when people purchase it and join, they know exactly what they're getting, but also use, persuasion and conversion mechanisms within there, but don't make people feel like they're being pushed. And so then it wrote me an offer doc in literally 3 prompts. It gave me part 1, part 2, part 3. We started just auto converting people from the offer doc because the offer doc baked in all of my philosophies, how I think about things, and it leveraged. It was like, hey, your strengths of your thinking, Matt, are this. So I'm going to write it in this way to match how you think.
Okay.
And then I gave it to my business partner and I was like, hey, dude, I wrote this. No AI edit, no edits. And he's like, no fucking way. Like, no way. And I, yeah, 100% no edits, nothing. It was just purely AI because it is my thoughts and how I write because it has enough data and information in it. And that offer doc is just converting like crazy. We send it to people before I run a workshop. They read through and they're like, holy shit, I've never like read anything like that. That's insane. Like, I feel like you just totally understood the situation. So like, that's like one example of like the offer doc, say, just creating it like immediately because it has all this information.
What else?
So, another example would be the GPT that I built that I said from the start, which was I took my frameworks of my second brain, put it below a GPT. Now clients can just put in their business, someone's LinkedIn profile, all the conversations it had with them, and it gives them a trust score. And so it gives them a score based on where that person is. So you can audit them through the trust process to see where they were ready and why they said yes or why they said no. And then I ran 30 of our closed won deals and 30 of our closed lost deals through that, won lost deals. It's so clear based off the conversation. It gives you a 10-page report on like, this is exactly what happened in the conversation. This is what the person felt all throughout. This is why it didn't close because they only got to this trust score. And I can look at 30 versus 30 and like, they didn't have enough trust to buy versus they had enough trust that they bought. And then I can also gauge now how well people go in our program, because if they join when they trust a lot, they are more invested in the program so that they spend more time doing it and coming to the calls. Because it's not just trust in you, it's trust in yourself. When someone buys a program, the reason why it's really hard selling to people who've never sold it, who have a new business, they don't actually even trust themselves. And so that's the issue. They think when they buy the thing, they might not even do it. So they don't actually go through and do the thing. So they actually, owning a business, you guys would know, you go through this self-exploration. Like, you fuck yourself up like all the way through till you're like, I'm actually a pretty durable human being, like at the end of it. And so there's this process that you actually go through. So what I've found is like, I can audit the trust stage of where people are at. And then I've been able to communicate that to clients to be like, hey, you can't ask this person for a meeting yet because it's like you're trying to kiss them on the first date in the first 3 seconds. Like you need to have dinner, take them out, go for a nice long walk, have a deep conversation, and then do it. And then the likelihood that it will happen will be better. So that's just like another example of like what we were able to build from it, which has been pretty crazy.
Yeah. And obviously you're working on a book with it, which sounds pretty interesting too. Interface wise.
So go ahead. The book itself, I'm putting a couple together, but one is I'm just going to do my whole core philosophy on LinkedIn. So what I call the trust equation. So I believe that the more someone has trust in you, the more likely they're going to buy. And the trust equation I've come up with is it's the perceived likelihood that the thing will happen times the value they get minus the risk. And so when you look at things weighing up, it's like, here's the value and the perceived likelihood. Here's the risk. You want one to be way more outweighing the other, and that gives them more trust in you, so they're more likelihood to buy inevitably. And so I'm putting together a book on that, the 6 gates of trust, the 3 C's of our program, and then how to operationalize it. And now that I've got everything in there, the book will take me like 3 hours to just create, and it will just be like done immediately. And so like the amount of now long form, really good content. Now, every time I put a post in our school community on LinkedIn, long form content doesn't work as well because people are just scrolling, right? The emails work really well. But like when I put a post in our internal school community, people are literally commenting like, how the F did you come up with this? Because it's taking millions of my words and interlock concepts and it's pulling them together to a really, really polished story that actually makes sense, that it's actually my thoughts. But instead of it taking me 10 hours to write and rethink out again, I can just pull the things that I've already thought about because I don't want to have to think through. Because you know, you've got experience doing something, and then you like re-explain it to something. You're like, okay, cool. It's like this, and then this, and you're like re-explaining the instructions, and you're trying to mesh it together. And then the next day you come back, oh, I fucking totally forgot this thing. But you've kind of already worked it out. It should just be there. And so then when you present it, then you build on top of it for their unique situation.
Very interesting. So then I'm curious for you, where do you see this evolving to for you?
Yeah. So the whole system that I wanted to build was more, it's like a recursive self-improvement system. So what I'm using it for now is like, what am I not seeing that I should be seeing? What am I not doing that I should be doing? So I can spot the gaps, because every entrepreneur, the battle you're having is just the battle you're having with yourself. That's just the whole battle. It's like everything. And so it's why certain people have advantages. They might have more money and more time. They've done things before and experience, but like you're ultimately playing a battle against yourself. And so deep down that like you're like, actually, if I did exercise 5 days a week, I would have clearer thinking. So then I could execute things. So it becomes this process of like you building yourself, and at the same time you're building a business. It's like it's a self-development journey. And I see it with clients. Like, I got one client who he went from making no money in 4 months, and like a year later, he's making 30 grand a month. He's 24 years old. But I've watched his development, and it's not just the development of the business. He's developed himself into like this really durable human being. And so it's like where I kind of see this evolving to, say for myself, is honestly, I don't know. It's like been like 10 weeks. It's pretty fucking crazy thus far. But I want to really helping people kind of help themselves. That's ultimately what it is. Cause I just think so many people carry around like this guilt and all these things about themselves, which actually just shouldn't be there. And if that stuff, it gets removed, then it just turns you into a human being that can just do more good things. And so that's why I think about business. I'm like, okay, how do I help our clients like remove these, like help them work through these things that are kind of blocks? Like I can always tell someone puts a post up in our community feed, they're asking about their DM scripts. They just don't feel confident in themselves. And so they want someone to give them permission. And so that's an issue with themselves. So it's like, okay, how do we create something? So I don't want to give someone the fish. I want to teach them how to fish. I believe in that concept as well. So how do I give them a system that they can help them teach themselves? So like, for example, my business partner scraped 54,000 viral LinkedIn posts. And with that, we can now tell like what's viral and what's not. So in our community, we're like, okay, we're going to teach you how to write content, but like actually put in this whole massive document that's 40 pages and then ask the AI to train you on why your post is not good. It's better to do that. So I'm more into teaching people how to think, because then if you do that, that's like the ultimate meta skill. It's like if you can think through it and work it out yourself, that's the best point you want to get to. And that's like, we have clients who then go through and then apply all this stuff. And then they eventually leave our program because they're like, honestly, I'm actually full for the next 3 months. I'm like, I can't even take on any more clients. And like, but it's because they taught themselves how to do it. It's not because a lot of people, we look for like these cold DM hacks, this thing that did this. It's like, we want that, but inevitably that's not actually going to solve the problem, because it's like you're trying to build your business without a solid foundation. But like now with AI and learning, everyone is capable of like learning all these things. But I think a lot of it comes back to like, we got schooled in this permission schooling system where like we had to ask for permission to do whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of we can just be like, oh, fuck it, I just do whatever I want. And so I think the only reason I've been able to do this maybe a bit quicker than other people, because I dropped out of school when I was 16. I worked 25 different jobs. I'm fucking weird, right? Like I've always changed my whole life. So for me, change feels safe. It feels fun. But I think this is just a little bit further, and everyone is just smart enough to be able to do this themselves, but they just haven't kind of like, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're just more go-getter people. They'll just be like, if you ask an entrepreneur, hey, go talk to that random human being, they'll just do it. Other people, they're like, it's a bit weird. Don't want to do that. What are they going to think about me? So you kind of want to get to that state where you're like, I'm literally just going to do what I'm going to do.
Right.
And that's it. And so that's what I want to help people get to ultimately, because then when you're at that point, then that's when other people are looking like, oh, how did you do that? And you're just creating this like positive thing for other people who are around you.
Yeah, listening to you talk, something that I didn't think about before, but there's an opportunity to, instead of answering a yes or no question 30 times to get a personality test, you can get some kind of a pretty in-depth personality report that calls out your gaps and ways you work on now, which is
100%.
pretty interesting.
I
You should
actively
build that
work
too.
with I actively work with 2 therapists right now. 2. One that knows what I'm doing, the other that doesn't know what I'm doing. And I pay them a lot of money to go through this process to make sure, because what I'm doing is really fucking weird. And so I just need to make sure, it's going to be safe and stuff like that, which inevitably you don't know. Like one guy I'm working with, I'm like, all right, here's the summary of my personality. And he's like, that would take 6 months for us to fucking work out in therapy. It would take us 6 months. Because like I think therapy and journaling and venting to a friend are all amazing things that people should do. It's like probably why women just probably don't kill themselves as much as men is because it's socially acceptable to vent to a friend. It's like they just connect. They'll just say, oh, my day was so fuck this. A lot of dudes just can't do that because it's just weird. But like, I think inevitably it's like, ultimately it's like if you can kind of like look inward and this tool then helps you look inward a little bit more, even if there's like that one thing which you're like, man, I always beat myself up for not going to the gym on Friday or whatever. Imagine if you just removed that. Imagine if that was just like gone and you just didn't feel guilty about that. It frees up RAM in your brain. So I think about other things.
Yeah.
And because that's ultimately like, we've only got a certain amount of RAM. You know, it's why parents are so good at just doing shit because you've only got limited RAM. So you got to make it get done. You're very efficient. Like, because you've experienced that. But like, I think if we can just like remove those things, then, you know, as an entrepreneurs just do this. They just do it just by being themselves, like, and just they go through that journey. But I think a lot of other people, like, I think as the coming of AI, as like, you know, persuasion and everything is getting so much better, like, ultimately what's going to happen is like people are just going to end up trusting nothing. They're just going to like, they're going to open up their phone and there's going to be a deep fake that's just so fucking good and it's just going to shake the world. And then ultimately it's just an erosion of trust.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. And so I think, but the first step though is like, okay, all these social media platforms know more about than us than we even know about themselves. But so I'd rather understand myself more than they understand me. So I can trust myself. So when I get fed these things in the algorithms, I can be like, no, I'm going to choose not to deal with that.
That's fair. For anybody who's fascinated by this topic and they want to learn more, or from anything else that you touched on here, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I'm going to write a book on this. It's like nearly done, to be honest. So I just have to put it out. But by the time this podcast will come out, it will probably come out. And so I'll just give it to you guys. I'll put it in the description below. And I'm deducing between a couple of titles, but I feel like writing a title when it's completed is better than writing a title like during. And so that'll be kind of like how to go through the process of like actually doing it. But I've got a couple of YouTube videos on it as well. But honestly, what we said in this podcast is enough for someone to just begin. It's like there's a lot of time we want permission. If you just do the 30-minute thing around walking around and then you just decide, actually, I'm just going to go down this journey of thinking about this stuff, just don't do it at night because you could get too anxious. You know, do it in the morning when you first wake up. And if you at any point of doing this type of stuff, like, and you're like, this feels really weird, just stop, just don't. Like, it's just because it's just not worth it. Because some people, if they're super neurotic and they have the tendency to ruminate a lot, probably not a smart idea. Probably better for you to go actually see professional help of someone as well. I think everyone should see someone professionally because I think it's just like a doctor for your mind. It's just standard. You should just have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that if you're going to do it, like you could just re-engineer what we talked about and just kind of go through it.
Yeah, I love it. Great. And I'm also looking forward to your next Coachella visit to see what new things.
Yeah, I know, right?
Out of that, there's a thing going on here. When you go to
Yeah,
Coachella, you
it's
have some
done.
sort of a breakdown, a break.
We're done.
Yeah.
No, we're done. Coachella's done. It's not happening. That's what sure. The irony is it happened at Coachella and just like the most like seriously like the most privileged place ever. That's the ironic thing. Like that's why I feel bad about it. I wish that it was somewhere which was like somewhere bad, but I'm like, no, it was Coachella in the VIP section that this happened. That's the whole irony. That's like, this is just so weird. But I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'm just going to tell it anyway. People will judge me no matter what.
Fair. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt.